Hello friends, my name is Vasek Armenicus and welcome to the very first episode of Genius and Ink podcast. I'm so excited about launching this podcast, and I believe that this podcast is going to have a lot in common with the Japanese Koan. In Zen Buddhist practice, there is such thing that they call Koan. It is usually a story, dialogue, or question which is used to provoke thinking. And over the past 15 years, I've collected many koans like this. In the last decade and a half alone, I've documented every book that I've ever read. Each time I came across a beautiful quote, idea, or passage in a book that I've been reading, I always wrote them down in my notebook. I carry my notebook wherever I go. I always have it either in my pocket or in my backpack or on my desk. And as of June 2023, when I record this, I have about 30 different Moleskine notebooks filled with thousands of quotes, ideas and passages from writers such as Jorge Luis Borges, Vladimir Nabokov, Johann Didion, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and many others. In fact, it was the German polymath Goethe who gave me one of the most priceless pieces of advice on writing and creativity that I follow regularly. He told one of his students the following quote, and I would like to read it out to you. I have my notebook right in front of me. And Goethe said to his student, "Beware of embarking on a great work. This is the mistake that our best minds make. The very people with the most talent and the fiercest ambition. The present demands its due. The thoughts and feelings that crowd upon the poet every day need to be put into words. And so they should be. But if your mind is taken up by some great work, nothing else can get a look in. All other thoughts are pushed aside, and you cannot even enjoy the ordinary pleasures of life." This is such an important quote personal to me because I often sacrificed the present for the sake of my grand ambition, which often never materialized. I always wanted to make the best podcast episode, the most in-depth video review, but those kind of great ambitions and big projects always came to me with the price of forgetting about the present and what I think right now, what I focus on right now. It was because of these quote that Goethe mentioned that I started to question, how can I make myself more engaged with the present books that I read, because each time when you read a book, you always have a certain atmosphere that hovers around you. You want this genuine, authentic, spontaneous thoughts to be out there, to be honest. And I think this is one of the reasons why I always found that I'm more engaged with the present on the pages of my journals and my notebooks, where I write and what I think and feel right now at the present moment. I feel on those pages of my journals more present than, let's say, sometimes in my YouTube videos or in my long podcast episodes, because long podcast episodes and YouTube videos involve a lot of editing, a lot of scripting, and that element of spontaneity disappears. I would like to give you an example of how my creativity, how this spontaneity often died down in me because of my great ambition. A couple of weeks ago, I decided to open one of my favorite books of all time. This book is 1,200 pages long, but I read those 1,200 pages in just 1 month because the book was so great. And I'm talking here about Victor Hugo's novel Les Misérables. when I encountered that book, I was absolutely stunned by certain scenes, and I wanted to review and share my feelings with my audience, with my friends, but I struggled. How can I review a book that is 1,200 pages long, that has 30 or 40 great scenes that each of them deserves my attention, deserves to be heard? Scenes such as the moment when Jean Valjean steals again from Père Madeleine, if I'm not mistaken, and then he realizes that this is not a good way of life. That scene when a thief realizes that he is a thief, that he cannot lead a life like this, deserves an entire podcast episode, a long YouTube video, but I never did it. I never talked about scenes like this because I thought that I'll have to review the whole book. This is what certain YouTubers do, or certain podcasts do. They dedicate an episode to an entire book, and great books are not prone to this kind of reviews. They want you to go deeper, to go into detail. So I think Genius in Ink seeks this element. But I would like to read another quote that had a very profound influence on me. It is another Koan, and it comes from a very contemporary book written by Oliver Burkeman. It's called 4,000 Weeks, and Oliver Burkeman has there a very interesting quote that I wrote right on the first page of my current journal. He says, "After all, it is painful to confront how limited your time is, because it means that tough choices are inevitable and that you won't have time for all you once dreamt to do." I found this quote so pertinent because each time when I choose what book to read, I also choose what book I'm not going to read. Each time when I choose what book to read, I have to be careful because it will take time away from another great book that I would like to read. I have to be careful with my choices, and I guess this is the reason why I so meticulously document everything that I read. I think there is this fear in me that if I won't remember this beautiful idea or this beautiful quote, I will never come back to it. I'll never read it again. And maybe this is the reason why I decided to unlock the notes that I've assembled over the last decade and a half and share them with you on this podcast. Those notes have their own mysteries, questions, and stories. They are like my cabinet of curiosities. I give names to each of my notebooks and journals, but if I had to give a name to all of them, a name that will unite the whole idea together, I would call them Genius and Ink. This name comes from one of the essays written about Virginia Woolf. And I believe that every masterpiece of literature that was ever written was a marriage between those elements of genius and ink. And this is what Goethe told to his student. He said, write what you feel right now. Use that spontaneity. Practice seeing, because if you don't write things down, it will disappear. Each masterpiece is the ability to be in the present and have a genius to put it in ink. This is what the essayist about Virginia Woolf also mentioned. So I want you to treat this podcast as a shared weekly diary where we are going to explore beautiful, timeless ideas from books written by the greatest minds, thinkers, and humans who have ever lived on this planet. While most of the podcasts are sit-down shows with professional microphones in soundproof rooms, I want Genius and Ink to have a feel of a diary entry. I'm going to record those entries in cafes where I read and write, in museums where I spend time, in my library or in the forest which is near my home. Wherever I encounter a great idea, I'm going to document it the way I do in my journals, in my notebooks, and I want those timeless ideas to be united with the present, to be in the place where I encountered them. I hope you will enjoy this journey. I think it is going to have a lot of twists and turns, a lot of adjustments. I'm going to do my best, but I hope that it won't lose that element of spontaneity, that element of spontaneous curiosity that I'm craving, that I'm aiming to achieve with this podcast. Thank you for joining the first step of this journey, and I hope you will be with me on the 2nd, 3rd, and 100th. I'll see you in the next one. This was Vasek Karmenicus and the first episode of Genius and Ink.